weren't enough for Real Madrid to get the 3 points. Instead, they have to share the points, and Elche coming up big once again, managing to protect things at home as everyone has to settle for that 2-2 draw. All right, so here's how it affects the La Liga table. Real Madrid still very much in front, but by just 1 point. Barcelona managing to close down the gap on them yesterday. And now we go to our crew who is out there in Alicante having a great time, no doubt, but looking a little cold. But let's get some more reaction from them on this result. Over to Kay Murray.
Yes, what a game we have just witnessed at the Martínez Valero. Between these two sides, first and foremost, got to say, LALIGA.
I think it was late from the beginning of the season. We've seen that it was Barcelona first and then Real Madrid. Atletico Madrid has been lost, but they is getting back. But yeah, I think that after what we've seen of this Real Madrid today, we can say that, yeah, there is a lot of competition to be played from the next few months. And really concerned about the display of Real Madrid, because just maybe the last 20 minutes we saw a little bit of reaction, we saw a little bit of creativity in the last there, or a few chances, but the first 45 minutes were really worried for Xabi Alonso.
Were they lucky to come away with a point today, Real Madrid?
To a certain degree, because in the first half they were played around far too easily, and there was they created chances, Elche, that they should have taken. Rafa Mir and Silva should have scored with their chances. And I thought the front two dominated the two centre-halves. Too often the two centre-halves were left by themselves and they lost the individual battles. You know, the one where Andre Silva tries to square it's because they lost the initial battle. But there were so many things wrong with Real Madrid's play today. It lacked intensity. They didn't close the ball down well enough. The defending on certain areas wasn't good enough. They were out of shape too many times. And when you're a team like Real Madrid and you're struggling in the game, you're looking for individuals to go and take the game by the scruff of the neck. Did you see one of those players take the game by the scruff of the neck? I certainly didn't. Some big players out there as well didn't really get hold of the game and say, right, this is going to be my game. I'm going to change the course of the game. I'm going to affect it. I don't think anybody did.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get to pitch side where Sid Lowe and Nedum Anua have been for us. Sid, obviously, you've got a little guest for us.
We have. We've got David Affengruber with us. I don't know how you feel after this game. The guys in the studios are talking about whether or not this is a game in which you'll feel like 2 points to get, sorry, a 2-2 draw, a point against Real Madrid is a really good result, or a really disappointing one given the position you were in.
I think a mix of both. That's why, yeah, we get 2 goals in set pieces. This makes me a little bit angry. We played amazing football today. We showed our creativity with the ball, and against the ball we were really hard to play against us, and we did a good job. But of course a point against Real Madrid is good, but I think when you see the game, maybe we can also be a little bit disappointed.
When you say you're frustrated at the 2 goals coming from free kicks, is that a frustration with your own team, perhaps a frustration with the refereeing as well? I know some of the players were appealing maybe for a foul on the goalkeeper in the second one.
No, I don't know if the foul from Fede Redondo outside is a foul. I don't know. I haven't seen it now. That's why I cannot say that much to it. But of course, when you get against a team like this, if they have amazing footballers inside, if they make a good action inside and score a goal, maybe you can, maybe it's easier to understand if they score. But then in set pieces, it's a little bit sad.
And what did the coach say to you after the game?
Yeah, that he's proud, but also a little bit disappointed. And yeah, it sounds a little bit crazy because we come new in the league this year, and now we are a little bit disappointed that we only make 1 point against Real Madrid. But yeah, this is what it is.
And also, if you'd indulge me, how much belief do you have? Because in this game, I think at the end of it, you've had more possession than Real Madrid. For a newly promoted side, that's very impressive. Is it the manager that instills that belief, or is it the players as well?
I think both. You need a manager for this, and you need the players for this. This is very important, and yeah, we try everything to bring our football in every stadium against every team. I think when you follow us in this season, you have seen it in every stadium we played. And this is what makes us a little bit special, but we have to continue like this and maybe to win games like this.
As you mentioned, the manager says to you he's proud but disappointed. Does that proudness, that pride come in part through, I suppose, how do I express this? The sense that you've got the bravery to play this way, because as you say, a newly promoted team, you've seen the other 2 teams that came up last year in the relegation zone at the moment, they're largely defensive sides. You're a team that, despite those apparent weaknesses, despite those apparent limitations, you take the game to everybody.
Yeah, that's what I think makes us a little bit special. I think everybody is not. You cannot pick one player out of this collective, and that's what makes us special. We don't have the stars. We are one team, and we are fighting every game for points.
David, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ciao.
Thanks very much. Take care.
Well, that wasn't too bad, was it? Should we throw it to Ian and Maka, see what they got to say?
Let's see what Ian Mack have got to
Go
say.
on then.
Well, what we've got to say is I think that fellow you were just talking to, David Affengruber, is a big contender for man of the match, along with Aleš Fabas, who scored one of the goals, along with Herman Valera, who caused havoc down that left-hand side. But I can't think of a Real Madrid player who was in any contention. They were a bit lucky to get the point, frankly, weren't they?
Yes, they were. And, I agree with what Stuart and Luis were saying. It probably would have been better Real Madrid to lose today, because they would have then had an inquest into how bad they were. Because the side that Xabi Alonso picked didn't turn up at all. Even
Well, they still have an inquest.
Well, yes, but they got away with it and they got a point and they've gone back top of the league. So it'll brush over the fact that it's happened. But I thought they were really, really, really disappointing. And you look at that side today and you think, what's changed from Carlo Ancelotti's side? And
What do we come back
the answer
with?
is nothing.
Yeah.
They look as if they're just a bunch of individuals defensively, but they were terrible all over the place again. Playing as just for moments, hoping that Kylian Mbappe or Vinny Jr. do something magnificent. And you can't rely on it at the moment. They need to wake up.
So whatever the stamp that Xabi Alonso is looking to put on this side, he hasn't done it yet, has he?
God, no. No. I mean, everything that Xabi Alonso did at Bayer Leverkusen, whether you play three at the back, which is, of course, is hard to do at Real Madrid, but pressing the ball, working hard, maximum effort, that wasn't there tonight.
Yeah.
And it was just off the cuff, running round, not helping. You see the second goal today, nobody closes Alvaro Rodriguez down. He picks the ball up on the halfway line, runs, turns Raul Asensio inside out. Just amateur football. You're thinking to yourself, when are they going to pick it up? Yes, they've gone top. Yes, it'll hide a multitude of sins. But if they play like that, they're not going to win anything this year, are they? Villarreal and Atletico Madrid are breathing down the necks.
Yeah. Forget
Forget about Barcelona. Barcelona are in much better form than Real Madrid are at this moment in
But
time.
big picture, that's good for La Liga to
Great.
me, that a team like Elche in 13th place give Real Madrid as good a game as that. And now you've got a real title race. Villarreal are in it. Atletico are in it. If you look at the table now,
Yeah.
that's got to be good
No, it's
for this
brilliant.
league.
It's
And I
brilliant.
thought that was great. A team like
Yeah.
Elche played the way they did against Real Madrid. They thoroughly deserve what
Yeah,
they
you
got
don't
from
want
the
to brush
game.
over the fact that Real Madrid were poor, because we have to focus on the positives. And Elche came and played Madrid at the game. They didn't sit back and defend. They wanted to play football. They wanted to go forward. They wanted to impress, and they did. And they deserve everything they got. It's just a pity, as you can hear by Sid Nedum speaking to David Affengruber. He was upset, and you can see why. They deserved the 3 points today. And unfortunately, they've walked away with one. But still, it was an excellent performance from Elche. And going forward, if they play like that, they'll stay in La Liga, no problem at all.
Yeah, I think I'm going to buy a pair of shoes from Elche. Back to you, Kay.
Thank you so much, guys. Great call today as well. But as it stands, it's a 3-game winless run. Obviously, there was the Liverpool game in the Champions League before the international break. There was the draw against Rayo Vallecano, and now this draw against Elche. Many things are going to be asked. As it stands right now, we haven't heard from Xabi Alonso, but his team selection tonight, that's the first thing that he's going to be picked up on, surely.
Yeah, definitely. I'm sure that why it wasn't Vinny Jr. involved, why Valverde. I think that he can give a little bit of argument because they've been involved in international, long trips, pick a little injury. But I'm not going to focus just on the players. I think the way that the team approached this game, it wasn't the best one. You could see in the 50-50s, Elche was more aware of it. It was more intense. It was more energetic. Center of the midfield. We've been talking a lot that it was missing since the Toni Kroos talks and arguments. We haven't been saying that this Real Madrid needed someone. Why Zubimendi wasn't there, because he's been a big top. But when you put together a team because you want to have more the ball, you want to have more creativity and bring the ball in better conditions to the players up front with Arda Güler and Ceballos, you know that you're going to struggle because you're going to play in front with a team that is one of the best team, third team with more possession in the league. You've seen them play. You know that they wait for you. They allow you to come to open spaces for you to decide where to go. All those kind of moments, you know that you're going to face. And then you decide to bring Arda Güler and Ceballos probably in the worst scenario, in the worst moment, to play against a team that have more possession. So if you start from that one, you see two young players at the back to have them play match together, and they play against and Robbo just mentioned again, 2 physical and strong players up front. You start getting small things, small details, and if you put that all together, you got this. A team that doesn't know if they're going to go up front, or they're going to sit at the back, or they are going to have the possession in the middle of the park, and small things become a big problem, and that's what the Real Madrid took tonight. They managed to get a point, and that's something that we were expecting, because in the second half they're going to improve. Even Jude Bellingham, we saw why Jude Bellingham didn't start the game like we saw in the last 20 minutes, with that energy, grabbing the ball, passing players, moving around. I didn't know why, because maybe he wasn't happy with what was happening around him. So small details managed. And I'm going to just say one more thing. Body language I said about Vini Jr. When Vini Jr. was coming in, Ceballos and Rodrigo was leaving the pitch on the side. There was they were attending. There was a stop. It was the game. It wasn't on, and it took a little bit of time. And they never went into the middle of the park to try to say goodbye to the players. I think that those kind of moments are very important to look at. Why 2 players are getting changed? It was Fran Garcia from the other side of the pitch went into the middle of the park and say hi and goodbye to the players, wishing all the best. And Ceballos and it was Ceballos and the other player that are now, and Rodrigo, were leaving out of the pitch. So these kind of situations are something that if Xabi Alonso doesn't address in control, it can be a big problem in the future.
On that physicality point that Luis brought up a bit earlier, and you've mentioned the centre-backs tonight, is that a concern for Real Madrid when they come up against physical teams, Robbo?
Yeah, because what they wanted to do to start with, the Elche were going to try and play out from the back, and they took some big risks in the first half. So Real Madrid put almost 5 players up. There was lots of issues with when they got played around. There was no recovery runs. That's the key to defending, recovery runs. Not, seeing the danger, seeing runners going, dropping off if somebody else is challenging, so you can pick up the bits and pieces. All those things weren't right for Real Madrid today, and that's a real worry going forward. And it looks to me as though Xabi Alonso, and you talked about the body language, the players aren't quite sure what they're meant to be doing at the moment. I'm giving the players a bit of an excuse here, but it doesn't look as though they realise what is you said Jude Bellingham, what is his role in the team? I'd love to ask him, what is your role in the team? What do you think it is? Is it that you just want to score goals and get into the box? Do you want to be a normal midfield player that creates? Do you want to be somebody that picks up the bits and pieces? He's an excellent player, but I don't know what he's doing at the moment.
Yeah, and another player from England that we need to talk about today as we go back down to our boys at the side of the pitch is Trent Alexander-Arnold. Sid, on the commentary, Ian Darke said if this was an audition, how would he have fared? It'd be great to get the thoughts of yourself and Nedum on that.
If this is an audition, I don't think he gets the part. I think that's the short answer to that. Not least, of course, because there are other players who can play that part. We've seen Dani Carvajal is currently injured, but Fede Valverde has played it right back. And there have been times this season where we have suspected over the last 3 or 4 weeks that Xabi Alonso prefers Fede Valverde, a midfielder, at right back than Trent Alexander-Arnold. And just to pick up on something that Robbo said there, that defending is about the recovery runs. In part as well, isn't it? And this is certainly what I think we were thinking watching the game from pitch side. It's also about being well positioned enough that you don't need to make those recovery runs.
Yeah, positioning is a very good starting point. But, if you're out of it, then the desire to be there is going to be a key thing. I think his performance today can be seen in 2 different ways. Because from an attacking standpoint, with the set pieces, yes, he was dangerous. From a defensive standpoint, I felt like there was a lot of attacking down that side for Elche. And I think that says a lot. And for me to kind of sum up how I perceived his game today, because I think there's some things within football that go sort of under the radar. There was a point where Real Madrid were desperately trying to defend. Bodies were being thrown everywhere. And then there was a chance for a quick counter-attack, and I think it was Courtois threw the ball to the halfway line. Who was on the halfway line? It was Trent Alexander-Arnold, the player that should have been back there with the melee of bodies. But instead, unfortunately, he's the one that starts the next attack, and it looks good, but in reality, it's a letdown to those other people who've put everything on the line to try and stop that goal. But I don't know what you guys think, Kay, but that's definitely my opinion.
Yeah, when you take a look at the table, that's what we're actually looking at as it comes to that now. Atletico are now just 4 points behind Real Madrid at the top of the table, just at the top of the table as well, because they've just gone a point ahead of Barcelona, only picking that point up here against Elche. Barcelona had closed the gap yesterday. Obviously, Luis, you've said that, we know there's a title race on here, but it's getting really hard to call at the moment, and Barcelona are getting closer right now.
Yeah, it's getting closer, and the guys just mentioned that the rhythm of Barcelona, we saw yesterday at Athletic Club, is really strong. They are missing a lot of players also. It's not that they haven't recovered. And all of them, it was Rafinha, the one late, he played yesterday at 10 minutes. But you can see that if Barcelona plays here, at least you can see that intensity. You can see the movement. You can see the ball flying from one side. After, we can talk about that high line or not, but you can see there is something there that they are trying. Today, we didn't see anything from Real Madrid, much more than trying to bring the ball as soon as possible to Mbappe. That is the one who was trying to create something or being more as a threat. So those kind of moments is a long season. There is still a lot to be played, and Champions League is going to be involved. And we all talk about February, March, when the things are more important. And always these kind of players, Real Madrid players, they show up in the most important moments. But definitely it's a concern, because if you start dropping points at Elche, at Rayo Vallecano, games that you should get the 3 points, you're going to miss those points at the end of the season.
What are your thoughts on it, Robbo?
We're saying as if Barcelona are in great form. They played quite well last night. There was moments in the game where they were still outplayed, and they had a couple of moments where they got away with it. Barcelona still have problems defensively. It's going to be a great season, because neither of these sides, Real Madrid or Barcelona, are going to be at their very best. Neither are going to be totally dominant, which makes it even better. And it leaves the other clubs a chance to maybe catch them up, because I watch Barcelona every week, and I don't think you know what you're going to get from Barcelona. You're going to get chances, you're going to get shots at goal, you're going to get goals, but you don't know what they're going to do defensively.
Well,
so that's a key point.
Right, yeah, key point for both of them right now.
Yeah.
You're not quite sure what you're going to get from them, and we've seen that today from Real Madrid. Let's get back to Sid and Nedum for their final thoughts down from the side of the pitch.
Well, Barcelona fans will have to forgive me, and Real Madrid fans will have to forgive me, Kay, for saying that what you're talking about there, I think is great news. I'm looking forward to the possibility of having a league title race that maybe involves Atletico Madrid and Villarreal as well, that maybe involves 4 teams and not just those 2. And I think that really and truly, and I wish this wasn't the case, but I think it is true that for those other teams to be involved, it probably needs to be a season in which the big 2 are a little bit vulnerable. And so in that sense, with apologies to fans of those 2 teams, I quite like the fact that they're not at their best.
Yeah, do you know, I'm gonna buy into that. I think that's perfectly fair. I think both sides are basically showing the issues that they have at this moment in time. And it's not to say that they can't improve as the season progresses.
Absolutely, because the talent is there.
Exactly, yeah. But it's interesting to see at this stage right now. And I've got to say, I hold my hands up. I said it was going to be 4-1 to Real Madrid. Listen, I'm a full believer in Elche. I am a full believer now. I'm an Elche truther. So from this standpoint forward, they will never lose a game again in my eyes.
Ever again?
Ever again.
Good, right. You heard it here.
We did hear it here, yes. We have heard it here. We finally found Nedum and got him a team, it would seem, in La Liga. And if only, Alexis, there was one place where you could watch La Liga all season to see how all the drama is going to play out. Oh, there is. Back to you.
Yes, indeed. Of course, La Liga is on ESPN all season long. But guess who's going to come over here all weekend long, or all week long, I should say? Stuart Robson, I believe you're getting on a first-class flight all the way here, because we have a Thanksgiving ESPN FC date.
First class.
First class.
Wow.
Bucket class, I'm afraid. You know, they won't pay for my first class. No, bucket class.
Oh, come
Luis gets
on.
the top honours. He gets first class. I just get bucket class.
All right, well, thank you
Yeah.
so much, guys. Just have a look at Robbo's boots. Let's be honest. A man like that is not getting on bucket class.
Okay. All right. All right.
All right, well, you heard it from Kay. La Liga is on ESPN all season long. The next time Real Madrid are in action, they have a midweek fixture in the Champions League. But when it's back to La Liga, they will face off against Girona. That's Sunday, November 30th, 3 p.m. Eastern Time on ABC.
Only one outcome. Hat trick for him. And Arsenal win it 4-1.
Arsenal win it 4-1 indeed, with quite the dominant performance. And North London is red indeed. And Eberechi Eze, like I said, haunting the fact that Tottenham wanted his signature and could not get it in the end. So here's a look at the Premier League standings now. The top half, because Arsenal are 6 points clear at the top of the table ahead of Chelsea. Spurs, they are in 9th though, level on points with a certain Manchester United, who will be playing tomorrow against Everton. All right, well, at this moment, let's bring on in another member of our team. Is Julian Laurens, who actually was at this game. We know he's got some close ties to Arsenal, and because of that, Jules, thoughts on the game? Does this mean the league's over then? Because I don't know who on this planet can stop Arsenal at the rate they're going.
Yeah, it's a good question, Alexis, for sure. And today was another test, simply because it was the derby. Not that I think many of us thought that this current Tottenham team could cause too much problem to Arsenal, but you just never know. It's the rivalry, it's the derby, etc., etc. But today was not the day where Arsenal would be rattled, really, or put under pressure, or have a few doubts. It might be next Sunday away at Stamford Bridge against Chelsea, who were 3 points behind just before this game kicked off today. So had Arsenal lost against Spurs, it would have been just 3 points between Chelsea and Arsenal, and they would have faced next week in southwest London. But it's 6 points, and I think if Arsenal don't lose against Chelsea, they would have played all the most direct opponents, really, when you think about it. And if they're still that clear, it's true that it's theirs to lose more than anything else, which we've said really pretty much since the start of the season.
It's just interesting because, as Jules pointed out, this was a derby. This was the North London derby. And I mean, Ale, I think we were talking about it just off camera, that urgency from Spurs just never came. Did you notice that, or is it just that Arsenal were that good?
I'm going to focus on Arsenal for right now. And I'm sure we'll speak about Spurs at some point. But their performance is not worthy of actually talking about Spurs. What I would say about Arsenal is that they're checking every box that you can potentially put in your mind about what a championship-winning team looks like. Today, that was supposed to be about the emotion of the derby, that throw the records away. You never know what's going to happen. 5 minutes in, you knew what was going to happen in this match. It wasn't competitive. Arsenal-Spurs wasn't competitive. Arsenal were all over Spurs, and from the very beginning, when Eze just kind of clips the ball over the top to Declan Rice, and Vicario has to come over with a save, you're kind of going, uh-oh, uh-oh.
Long night.
Uh-oh, it's only a matter of time until this gets out of hand. Arsenal pressing the ball higher up the field, forcing turnovers. Spurs never getting close enough to Arsenal to actually impact their game or to force them to play the ball backwards or sideways. The manner in which Arsenal approached this game, it just seemed inevitable that at some point they were going to score and 1 was going to become 2 and 2 was going to become 3. And while it seemed inevitable to me watching it from afar, it also felt like it was inevitable for Spurs. They almost sense as if like, yeah, I don't know. I don't think we got a chance because we can't complete 3 passes and we are not finding any sort of outlet or we're not finding any way to release some pressure, and that's credit to Arsenal. Overall, the thing that I think makes it the more impressive for Arsenal is that this was not a competitive game. It was not. There was 5 or 10 minutes following the Richarlison goal that you may think, Arsenal were a little uncomfortable. And that was it. There was nothing, again, competitive in what's supposed to be a derby match. It wasn't. It was all Arsenal all the time.
Stevie, when you see Spurs playing like they did and faltering big time in a derby, when you see the problems that we know Liverpool are having, when you see Manchester City, of course, still winning, having an Erling Haaland doing well, but again, faltering to Newcastle, what team can really take down Arsenal at this point?
Arsenal. Arsenal's the only side that can trip themselves up. You know, yes, they beat a lacklustre Spurs side, but the way they played the game, the composure, particularly in a North London derby, the way they went about it from the start to the finish, this is impressive. And the one thing they've done this weekend, if anybody had any doubts that Sunderland wasn't just a hiccup, then this weekend Arsenal have completely and utterly separated themselves from everybody else in the Premier League. Everybody else. We can talk about any team you like and we will find holes in it. You can't find holes in this Arsenal side. You can't. We could sit here all day and not one of us would come up with a genuine reason why Arsenal will fail. That's how good this team is and how much they've separated themselves from every other side in the Premier League.
Jules, just hearing Stevie talk about that, the fact that we all could sit here and pick apart this Arsenal squad and not really find any holes or almost any flaws in it. What are their ambitions now? Are we talking a treble? Are we talking a quadruple maybe?
Oh, God damn.
No, I don't think they're even thinking about that. Yeah, I think they'd be happy with the league to start with, just to that. They've been waiting for long enough. It will be 22 years if they do win it at the end of this season since the last one. I think that's all they think about. But we talked a lot about Gabriel being missing for this game and out for at least 4 weeks probably. And who would replace him? Would it be Calafiori or Mosquera or Hincapié and where? And okay, this is an easy game for Hincapié because Stevie could have played next to Saliba in that defense, and Stevie would have played in his sofa like Hincapié did. So the Bayern game would be a much bigger test for Hincapié, like the Chelsea game away next weekend. But even when they don't have Gyökeres, or they don't have Odegaard, or they don't have Gabriel, even on the back of an international break where everybody went away and just came back, they're still producing something like that. I mean, I know Spurs were embarrassingly bad, and Thomas Frank especially, because this tactics just was completely, useless and completely clueless from him. But that's one for later. But Paul Vale, by the way, had a higher expected goals against Arsenal than Spurs had. Leeds had a higher expected goals than Spurs had today. This is how bad it was. But for Arsenal, to just have players coming in like Nketiah, who hardly played today, and feel really at ease in the structure, Eze in that role. I mean, Declan Rice today was again outstanding. It's just, even when they have injuries, which was the thing that let them down in the last 3 seasons, now because of the depth in the squad that they've had, which we highlighted earlier in the season on the show, it's a very different team and a very different dynamic from them.
Well, the only thing that's fancier today than Jules' background was just the performance from Eberechi Eze. Jules, that hat-trick, you just felt like it was eventually going to come. It was written in the stars, considering his story and his ties to Arsenal. But he's just bringing that X factor that some felt Arsenal still needed, especially in attack.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, again, he was in the right place at the right time. His quality on the ball is exceptional. He was helped massively, and so was the team by, again, how bad Spurs were. How can you leave Eze with so much space on the edge of your own box when you play with a back 5 and 2 defensive midfielders? That's 7 players, plus your goalkeeper. And yet Eze has all that space. Merino has all that space to pick a pass, to pick a shot, to just do what you want, really, on the pitch. But Eze was outstanding. And you're right, Alexis. It was always written that he would be shining. For all the debate, all the narrative before this game of he almost signed for Spurs, but for him, the Arsenal fan, to have gone to Arsenal, the dream move, and now in his first North London derby with the rivalry, with the whole family in the stands, and yeah, he's the big star and scored those 3 goals in that central position. I don't know what's happening when Odegaard comes back, and he's not far from coming back. Do you move Eze back out wide on the left again? But Trossard has been great, so there's a lot of question mark that then Arteta would have to respond. But when you've got Eze in that kind of form, even at the last third end of the pitch, it's just a luxury, really.
This is when we need Jan Fjordtoft.
Why is that?
Why?
Oh.
Well, how do you move a guy who's just got a hat trick?
You don't.
You don't.
Well, you don't.
Well, you don't.
Full stop.
I'm watching the game, and the camera's panning towards the sidelines, and I'm looking at Odegaard, and I'm thinking, he's sitting there going,
Uh-oh.
oh.
Uh-oh.
You know what the telltale sign was? That Eze scores the second goal. Gabriel goes crazy with Odegaard right next to him.
Yeah.
And Odegaard is like, all right, goal.
Okay.
That's not good for me.
All right. Hey. Good goal there, Eze. All right.
And you can't. But I honestly think we should forget about Spurs today. Because I honestly believe this performance, it wouldn't have mattered that much who they were up against. And that's the position they're in now. It doesn't matter who they play, home or away. It's about what we do. That's what the best teams do. Let the opposition worry about us, because every single thing we do is going to be better than what anybody else has got to offer. And that's the biggest thing for me from this. I mean, to think that you would suggest that the league's over after, 12 games? But it's not a fact. It feels as though it's right. You know, I don't feel strange saying the league's over. The Premier League, we talk about the Bundesliga and Bayern and think, what can it, this is... But you know what? When a team's that good, who cares if it's over after 12? If you can't enjoy watching a team that plays the way Arsenal does, then you're watching the wrong sport.
If I can just go back to Eze for a second, and on the hat trick, they all came in the same central position that Jules is talking about. Now, that you may think, well, he's just very good at finding the open spaces, and then once in the open spaces, he was very good about finishing his chances. But it does take some mental discipline to not just roam around and understand, if this team is going to give me this space, then I'm going to hang out right here. I don't have to go over there. I don't have to go over here. No. This is where I got my space. They're apparently not aware that I'm about to score here again and again and again. And he had another chance to score a 4th goal from the same position. Now, we're sort of on the fringes of talking about Spurs, but I'm with you, Stevie. It is about Arsenal. It is about Eze. It is about the individual players of Arsenal, but then the team structure of Arsenal and how good they are. The reason that you can have players come in and out, this guy's injured, that guy's injured, this guy's injured. And they're still able to produce results like this and performances like this is because there is depth within the squad, which is always important, but there's also knowledge and understanding what your role is within the structure of a group. It is clear to see that Arsenal are right here and then it's everybody else. If you didn't think that coming into this weekend, maybe Don thought that this was 50-50. Somehow he argued that it was a 50-50 between them and Manchester City, even though Arsenal were up 4 points coming into this weekend. I don't understand his math, but nobody else does either. You watch what this weekend was all about in the Premier League, and you can physically see the separation between Arsenal and everybody else.
You also need to talk about people like Trossard.
Yeah, absolutely.
Every championship winning side, regardless of what country it is, has people like Trossard. A guy who doesn't get the headlines. If somebody's going to be left out, is it going to be him? I mean, he's constantly been mentioned in those terms. But this season in particular, he's the guy that's turning up and producing. You know, he's got a goal today. We're a bit lucky, but he's got a goal. He's got an assist as well. But he's a guy that we never talk about. So not only have they got superstars that are performing, but even the so-called fringe players, the so-called players that are under question, they're producing as well. I mean, it's a recipe for success.
And focusing on Spurs and specifically Thomas Frank, it'll be interesting to know what the headlines in London are saying about him now, because we went from singing his praises at the beginning of the season to now looking at how Spurs have really faltered and looked very lackluster in some big games and big moments. So in terms of bigger pictures, are there any worries there?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I really think today was embarrassing. He embarrassed himself to start with, Thomas Frank, with what he tried to put in place, really, which, to be fair, being there was, when you got the team here, you understand the back five, Palhinha and Bentancur, that front three, which would do what they could, I guess, with the ball, with maybe one of the wing backs, depending on where the ball was. So they would attack with 4, defend with 11. He said that the plan was to press really high and to be aggressive and to go. To press high, you need Arsenal to actually have the ball in their own box or to have a goal kick, which was never the case. Spurs touched the ball twice in the Arsenal box in the first half. They had 14 passes in the Arsenal half. Not in the last 30, in the Arsenal half, 14 passes in the whole of 48 minutes of the first half. That's one pass. I mean, it's embarrassing. It was an embarrassing performance from him and from the team. And he changed at halftime with Xabi Simons may as well not have been on the pitch, really, for the whole second half. So yes, they scored that goal that Arsenal gifted them in a way, because Zubimendi should never get hold of the ball for so long, should have let the ball go before that. But I thought Thomas Frank got everything wrong today, and it's not the first time. We talked about how bad they were against Chelsea at home and how no threat they offered. He's got no patterns of play going forward. Attacking-wise, there is nothing. And when his team doesn't defend well, which they did at the start of the season, but not so much anymore, then they have nothing going for them. And I know he needs energy from the fans, energy from the players. That's how his Brentford team was so good, right? Because they had all that energy, especially at home. It was a fortress. You don't get that same way in a big club. Players don't respond the same way. Fans don't respond the same way. They've got other expectations. They're very demanding, far more than at Brentford, for example. And right now, he can't get what he wants, and he can't get it right either. And today, you can understand maybe why you would want to go for a back five and be solid and compact. But you go with a back five again and those 2 6s in front of that, and you leave all that space for Merino and Eze and Trossard and Saka. It was a walk in the park for Arsenal, and it shouldn't have never been. And for me, this is all on Thomas Frank.
Putting Arsenal's brilliance aside, though, do you think Thomas Frank, as Jules said, did himself no favours just starting with how he lined up his team?
Yeah, I think Jules hit the nail on the head, to be perfectly honest with you. You know, when we talk about patterns of play, you know, the patterns of play, the reason you use them is because when things are not going well, you can revert to them. Things that you train every day and work on every day, you know, ball's going wide. When it goes wide, it comes in. When it comes in, it's a quick flick. All of those things you work on for when things are not going well. You know, we'd all love to get a team and just throw them out on the field, and it's Brazil or the great Dutch teams or the great Real Madrid teams where they can just play, and you can. Every coach would love to be able to say, you know what, you go and show us what quality you've got. But not everybody can do that. And so, yes, you have to be organised, but you also have to have a structure going forward. And I have to agree with Jules. They, not only in this game, but recently, have looked as though they have no structure going forward whatsoever. We figured that he would get them organised after the last manager, which he did, which is the easy bit. You know, coaching, the easy bit is filling holes, keeping it tight. Where should you be? The toughest part of coaching is the other side of the game. How do you get everybody forward? How do we do it correctly? How do we do it quickly? And then how do we put the ball in the net? And today, he got both wrong. And that's worrying.
As a former player, but also I have to imagine if you're a fan of Spurs and you're watching this game and you're getting run over all over the field, and every time they pan to your manager, this guy is over here with the assistants. They're looking at the tablet, right? and they're discussing, and they're doing the thing and the tablet, and then they're pointing over there, and the tablet over here, and I'm like, throw the tablet away, dude. The answers are not there. Yeah. The game is right out there in front of you. In front of you. The answers are not there. If you're having to look at your tablet 10 times during the first half to try to break it down and figure out what's going on, then you have issues. The answers are not here. The answers are out there on the field, and you have to make those decisions on the run. And what I saw was a guy with a blank stare. And when you're a player and you see your manager who's diving into the tablet and has a blank stare when you look at him, guess what? If he's not sure,
you're not sure.
Then you're not sure. At the very least, you got to fake until you make it. At the very least, you have to portray a sense of, I know what I'm doing, this is the game plan, and this is how we're going to execute it. But every time you look to the silence, he's over here on the tablet, you lost me.
There's not a player that ever played the game when the manager's on the touchline, shouting your name, looking at you, pointing the finger, telling you to buck your ideas up. There's not a player that wants that. And there's not a player, almost every single player reacts to that. As Ali said, they certainly don't react to some guy with his head stuck in a tablet, that's for sure.
Here's a look at the match stats from this derby that went in the favor of Milan. Let's have a look at the Serie A standings. Now this victory takes Milan into second place, 2 points behind the leaders Roma after they had a 3-1 win. As for Inter, they are in fourth, 1 point behind Milan and 2 behind Roma. Well, not our Gab Marcotti, but his partner in all sorts of crime. Julian Laurence was watching this game. We had to pry him away from Ligue 1. But Jules, thoughts on this game? Deserving win for Milan?
I mean, as we saw in the highlights, not really. I think Inter were wondering how they at least didn't get a point in this game. They were the better team, especially in the first half. And then that Jan Sommer mistake, I think we can call it like that, Pulisic who scored and the Çalhanoğlu penalty miss. And in the end, it's just, and I mean, Inter had a lot of the ball, a lot more than Milan. They had a lot of shot, low quality shot for some of them, but they hit the woodwork. And really, they should have been on top. It's similar to some of the games that we saw last season between them two. But Milan would be very happy, obviously, and Max Allegri, especially with a win like that. Where for Christian Kivu, it's another top game where maybe they should have been far more efficient in both boxes, and they were not. Whether you can blame that a bit on his tactics, or a bit on his substitutions, a bit on the players starting. But I was glad to see Magic Mike again being really big for Milan on that penalty save.
As for Christian Pulisic, because of course you know where we are and you know we have to talk about him. He's enjoying quite a season with Milan. Thoughts on his performance today, Jules? And as Ale said, right place, right time. Yeah, right place, right time, which he's become really, really good at, isn't he? Since he moved to Milan, he had obviously the injury. There was the whole shenanigans with Pochettino and the US men's national team. In the meantime, Rafael Leao also came back from injury, and I think that front two now of Pulisic and Leao, as we saw tonight, more than any other combination that Allegri could have up front for this Milan team, is the right one. I think they played really well with each other. They have different qualities. They complement each other really well. And Pulisic, since he moved to Milan, has come really big in those kind of matches. That's why he was Serie A player
of the season, not last season, the season before that. That's why he's been Milan best player really since joining the club. So again, the game today showed, even if he didn't have a great game overall, like this Milan side, but he was there when it mattered the most, super efficient, and with a winning goal. That's all you ask him for, really.
All right, well, if you want to hear from Julien Laurens a lot more, and why wouldn't you? Let's be honest. Guess what? In less than 24 hours, a new edition of the Gab and Jules show is going to drop, and make sure to get it, as I'm pretty sure they'll be speaking a lot more about the City app. All right, well, earlier on in La Liga, Real Madrid dropping points on the road as Elche definitely puts up quite the fight against Los Blancos. Let's hear from Xabi Alonso after that game.
La conexión va mejorando porque cada vez ya tenemos más tiempo, más trato, nos conocemos mejor, vamos todos en el mismo barco, vamos todos juntos en la misma dirección. Habíamos hablado, como solemos hablar muchas veces, y él lo entiende, lo sabía el papel y el impacto que podía tener. Ya lo habíamos hecho otras veces, por ejemplo el partido de Getafe, o sea que él sigue conectado. Hoy, evidentemente, pues no estamos todos todo lo contento que nos gustaría, pero todos están con energía de querer recuperar un buen resultado y una buena dinámica.
All right, well, Xabi Alonso with a couple of things to think about, because in just 3 days' time, Real Madrid will be in action in the Champions League, and after that, they are back in action in La Liga a week from today up against Girona, another game on the road. That's 3 p.m. Eastern time on ABC. All right, welcome into Extra Time on this Sunday fun day. We've got Julien Laurens looking a bit confused that he's still with us. He's almost like, what?
Wait a minute. I thought I was going to sleep. What?
He said, I thought it was clear. It's late night in London, but no, Jules, you're still very much with us. Oh, wah, 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 wah. All right, let's get into it, because the first question is actually for Jules.
Yes.
Jules, how active do you think Liverpool will be in the January transfer period?
Well, it's funny, it's a good question, because the question was asked Arne Slot, I think, in his pre-match press conference this week, I think, about if he's already thinking about signing a centre-back, especially. I mean, the central defender position, we talked a lot about it when they missed out on Gehi. We talked a lot about it because they've been conceding a lot of goals, and why if something happens to Konate or Van Dijk, Konate, who hasn't been great at all, and Slot said, I'm not even thinking about January transfer window yet. We are in November. I'm thinking about the next game, blah, 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 blah. They must be thinking about at least a centre back for January, or maybe a defender that can play, maybe right back, maybe centre back with a bit of versatility. But they have to go out on the transfer window and sign, whether it's Gehi and trying to have another go at Gehi and convince Palace to let him go halfway through the season. If it's not that, then somebody else. But they have to, really. I know they probably are thinking about how to get this team better for now, sure. And the immediate, the present is more important than what could happen in January. But surely, Richard Hughes, Michael Edwards, all that team of recruitment have to think already about defender in January.
Stevie, that's what you want to see? Liverpool being
100%.
very active? Gee,
well, I think they got
cash.
They got caught with the pants down over the Gehi one, because they obviously thought it was pretty much done. And then, of course, at the last minute, it didn't happen. And then, you know, we talked about it and said, what if? And then the what ifs have all started to come true. And there is absolutely no cover. Joe Gomez, who I believe is fit now, but you can't rely on him to get through one game, never mind a series of games. And so, you know, you're not looking to go and spend 90 million on a defender. What you need to bring in is a honest, reliable centre-back who can do the job till things settle down. And then you come next summer and then you try and sign, not maybe 90 million, but you try and sign somebody who fits the profile, the whole thing. So absolutely 100% if they do not sign a defender in the January window, then this chaos seems like it will continue.
Well, speaking of the chaos at Liverpool, that's what the next question is kind of about. From Miggy, who says, why are we not talking about how big of a flop Isak is and Wirtz while criticizing Gyökeres more?
What?
I think we do talk a lot about
What?
beards.
Yeah.
Miggy, have you been watching the show?
What?
But Isak, big flop? Can we call it this already?
No, you can't see it. The guy's not 100% fit. And he's playing in a team that can't chew gum and tie his shoelaces at the same time. So it's a kind of, again, it's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
And Wirtz falls into the same sort of category. I mean, you cannot question the ability of these two guys. The circumstances right now are still in a position where you can't point a finger at either of them. This is not. Obviously, they take some responsibility, but this is not all on them.
Alex?
The struggles of Liverpool are not down to just the fact that they're missing a centre back, or just the fact that Isak is not scoring the goals, or just the fact that
if it was only that simple,
or that Florian Wirtz hasn't been as productive as they would have wanted him to be. All those things combined, plus, and that's a problem. It's all those things that I just mentioned, plus. There are so many different things about this team right now that are a problem. But I think most of all, now doubt is all over the minds, the hearts, and the souls of these players, of these fans, of this manager, and it's all over Liverpool as a club. And when you have that dark cloud of doubt all over you, that you believe things are about to happen that are negative, when you believe wholeheartedly, like, here we go again. That's the feeling that I got after the first goal by Nottingham Forest, in that Liverpool thought, here we go again. When you have that crept into a locker room, it is so incredibly difficult to turn around.
The only spot where they don't have any trouble is the goalkeeper. But even the goalkeepers will be affected by this because they will not know who to cover, when to cover, how to cover. It affects them as well. But that's the one thing I would say that is not a problem. Everything else, unfortunately,
is a problem.
So, coming to work for Liverpool, coming to training for Liverpool, it has to be such a difficult task for players right now. Because you walk into that locker room and you can feel it, you can sense it, you can taste it. The atmosphere is thick with all sorts of tension, with all sorts of pressure, and that's no way to try to get yourself out of a hole. And that is indeed the position that they're in.
I'm so glad we don't have to experience that. We love coming to
I thought
work.
you were going to say I'm so glad they're in trouble.
No, Stevie, I'm not heartless.
Well, you wouldn't say it on air. Let's put it that way.
Jules had enough of
Jules
this conversation.
is tapped out.
That's the next question.
Jules is tapped out.
Oh, sorry.
Jules.
Call him back. Somebody call him back.
Have we lost Jules? Okay, we've lost. We've lost Jules. I think he just hung up on us on purpose.
Tell me go to bed.
Call me back.
Jules, we're going to let you go to bed soon. Oh, we lost Jules.
Okay. Call me back, though. We'll call him back, and then we'll figure it out.
We lost Jules, which is such a shame because the next question could have been for him.
Well,
if Arsenal win the league, is it fair to say that the standard and quality is terrible this season? Man City rebuild and Liverpool missing? How does it compare to Liverpool last season?
No, you can't say that. Just because one team is so much better than the rest, you can't say the standard and the quality to it. I think what we've seen so far, I've enjoyed. Is it just me? I've enjoyed the Premier League games more so far this season than I have for a couple of seasons.
We've got our expert back.
Wait a minute.
Yay!
Hold on a minute.
Jules is back. Jules, we actually didn't want Stevie to answer this question.
What does that leave me and him?
No. You are not the expert, and neither am I.
Clearly not.
Alex, my Bundesliga expert.
We've got the expert back.
We've got the expert.
We called them back. We called them back.
Because this slightly has to do with Arsenal. Jules, the question.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jules, the question was, if Arsenal win the league, is it fair to say the standard and quality is terrible this season? Man City's rebuild and Liverpool are missing. How does it compare to Liverpool last season? Stevie was saying you can't say that.
No, I mean, it's funny you said that because we had this discussion with Nedum this afternoon together by messages. I know he was in Elche and I was in London, obviously.
Oh, that's a bromance.
But because last season it's a debate that is, yeah, of course it is, you know. Last season, Liverpool were much better than anybody else, and the level overall of the Premier League last season wasn't great. It was not a vintage season. We repeated that. It took nothing away from how good Liverpool were and how much they deserved the title. No problem at all. I think we could see something quite similar this season. Is We talked about how bad this Spurs team is, and they are really bad. And yet, not that long ago, they were third in the table. Brentford, at some point yesterday, during Saturday's game, Brentford were fifth. Brentford were fifth in the Premier League table when they took the lead away at Brighton. So this, and you can give me the whole, this is competitive, it's the Premier League, it's the best, maybe. But it's not a very good season. Outside of Arsenal, the other teams are not very good. Even Chelsea. Even your United, by the way, as you said, we can go top 3 if they win tomorrow against Everton or something like that.
Hang on, I did not say that. I did not say that. And I'm the first to say
I think you said that during the show.
No, I would never.
But I'm not taking anything away from Arsenal and how good Arsenal have been, and they've been by far the better team. But we have to be also honest. We haven't seen great games. We are not seeing great performances, great teams outside of Arsenal.
TV, you beg to differ.
Well, the thing is, see, here's the thing. I agree last season was poor. I 100% agree last season was poor. But I would argue that I've enjoyed a lot of the games this year so far. Mm-hmm. Now, if we want to start nitpicking and talking about quality and this and that, I mean, there is small margins between so many teams because of the money. I mean, let's be honest, we're talking about Brentford here. Brentford have gone and spent 42 million on somebody. Little Brentford, who got a tiny wee stadium.
Is that actual information?
It is.
All right.
It is.
I'm just making
Stevie knows
sure.
his stats.
Yeah.
He knows his number.
He's bringing it.
He's bringing it.
So you know, all the teams are spending that kind of money on players. Then the whole thing's going to start getting closer, which it is. But it seems too easy to me to turn around and say, well, because of that, it means the teams aren't good. I don't go along with that at all.
All I would say is that it's not Arsenal's fault that everybody else is having issues. That's on everybody else. That's Manchester City's problem. That's Liverpool's problem. That's Manchester United's problem. Spurs' problem. Chelsea, whoever. That's their issue. As for Arsenal, they look the part. They're doing their part to make sure that difference that we think is perception is actually reality. The perception is Arsenal got to figure out, everybody else is still trying to find answers.
Issues. We all have them. We all have them.
You okay?
Next question. Listen, United's issues have been around for about a decade now. I've made peace with it. Have I made peace with it? Check me tomorrow. Next question. Is today's performance by Eze and Spurs' failure to sign him over months a prime example of why Levy got pushed out, Jules?
Yeah, I think so. And I know it's not just the Eze signing, obviously. I think the Eze, or not the Eze not signing, if you want, was probably the final straw at a time where the club, through the Lewis family, you know, and Enik, and also the arrival of Vinay as the kind of CEO too, you know, it was a time for restructuring anyway. And I think already, because of what happened at times in the past with Daniel Levy, there was a lot of pressure on him. But the Eze signing with Spurs, let's be honest here, Spurs should have signed him. They should have signed him. There's no, you can't turn in, they should have signed, he was theirs. The fact that they didn't do is because of Daniel Levy predominantly. And I think just for that, it showed again that he was not the right guy to guide this club towards a different direction in a new era for something different. And that's why he then was let go, really. It's as simple as that. But you're right. And it's too simplistic to say, look at Eze today for Arsenal and what if he had played for Spurs today for the season, all of that. We will never know anyway. But it's true that the fault lies on Daniel Levy on why he was wearing the red shirt and not the white shirt today.
All right, next question. Stevie, what's your ESPN FC buyout clause so the Reds can bring you home to save Slot's sinking ship? Wow, say that 3 times fast. First of all, he doesn't have a buyout clause. We're not going to let him.
That's a lot of mints and tatties.
That's a lot of mints.
It's too much.
Someone once told me a house is only worth what someone is prepared to pay for it.
And you're a big house.
And you're a big house.
So that final number is really not down to me. It's only what somebody's prepared to pay.
And I think, well, we've seen Liverpool
regardless of what's in the
clause. Stevie, I think you're priceless.
You're a good liar.
Oh, no. No, stop it. You know I mean it. You know
I know you do.
Exactly. Stop. Next question. Ale.
I have
Hugo
a prize.
Lloris. Oh, you have a prize. Ale, Hugo Lloris complained about playing on plastic carpet in Vancouver last night. Is he just being salty after losing, or does he have a point? What's your experience playing on turf?
Well, turf, even though it's gotten much better now than what it used to be, is still terrible. Still not as good as playing on natural grass. That's anybody who has played on turf would let you know that is exactly the case. And it impacts the way that you play the game because the ball doesn't bounce the same way that it usually does on natural grass. So it does impact the game. As for Hugo Lloris, what I would say is I don't think it impacted how he played the goalkeeping position. And it must be said that in this particular game, there were moments in which he could have done a whole lot better for LAFC, particularly the second goal by Vancouver. He would argue that it's actually the bounce of the ball was not true on the turf. What I would say is that catch the ball, bro.
Ooh.
Catch the ball. And if you're not going to catch it, it's got to go wide. And he didn't. And then he ends up getting scored from a very tight angle. So I understand the general concern and feeling about turf, and I sympathize. But it's not the reason as to why LAFC lost yesterday. LAFC were playing against 9 men in extra time when the game was 2-2, and they were unable to score a game-winning goal, even though they had 4 or 5 quality chances. They didn't do it. That's on them. It's not on the turf.
9?
Yeah?
I thought it was 10.
No, we just fast forwarded through. We can't show all the highlights, Stevie. It was a jam-packed game.
Wow.
If not, we'd still be here.
And you've got the cheek to complain about the field.
All right, well, I'm just saying.
Oh, all right, all right. Jules is getting antsy because that's his boy. You can't talk about his Frenchies like that. But speaking of Jules' Frenchies, final question, Jules, is about one. Pogba played his first match in 2 years. Is there any chance he makes the France squad in June if he's fit?
I'll answer that one.
I mean, that's his dream. That is absolute dream. I think because of the relationship that he has with Didier Deschamps, it's like a father and son kind of relationship. I think the door will always be open from a Deschamps point of view. But let's be honest here, it's as much as I would love him to do and love him to be part of that 26-man squad to go to the 2026 World Cup, it looks quite unlikely. He played 5 minutes. He came on in the 85th minute yesterday. And to be fair, touched the ball far more than I thought he would in that space of time. And already you could tell he wants to be involved. He wants to be part of it and get the ball all the time. But there's a difference between that and be ready for a World Cup for your country. And he's not there yet. Will he be there? It's not just fitness-wise that he has to be there. It's also his own level. And he will turn 33 in March. So it's, 33 in March. He was born 93. So nobody knows. That's the answer. I'm sorry. I know I sit about on fence, but nobody knows right now what he will be able to do in 3 months, 4 months. Will he stay injury-free, for example, which is a bit worry for him and for Monaco. Can he then maybe in a month time start playing 90 minutes and then maybe twice every 3 days, 90 minutes, things like that? We don't know yet. Until we know that, then the rest will probably follow if he's good enough on the pitch, on the ball, etc., etc. But that's the dream. The dreams are there to dream of, right? So let's dream that he might be there, but there's a long way to go.
That was a hell of a palaver to say no chance.
He has to explain it. He's a journalist. This is why we pay him the big bucks.
Well, you got to fill the sheet up, haven't you?
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Oh no, sorry, you do that. No,
I can also say
you do that.
Honestly, he played 5 minutes, and we go from him playing 5 minutes.
To the World Cup squad.
He's going to the World Cup squad for France.
It's the dream, Ali. It's the dream.
I hear you. I know, but you have said the word dream 27 times in the last 30 seconds, so I imagine that the dream may not be happening.
Yeah.
All right. Well, much like Jules' other Frenchman and Hugo Lloris, he's been complaining that he's tired, so we're going to end things there. That's it for Extra Time.
Wait,
we'll
Jules was playing on turf? Was Jules playing on turf or what?
He's playing on an artificial background right now for the show. So ESPN FC will be back tomorrow to recap all of the weekend's action, so make sure to tune in.